Hello dear listeners, this is Dimitrios Papalexis from the podcast series ABCD on the Go, bringing you inspiring stories from the community, amazing content and spreading positivity. I'm here today again on a cloudy afternoon for a very important episode. As you all know, we are all facing a crisis with COVID-19 and we are all socially isolating, or better say physically, and hopefully staying socially connected. And as we stay at home and we access our social media more and we listen to the news, sometimes we may be bombarded with lots of information. A lot of this information might be useful in terms of knowing what's safe for us to do and how to protect ourselves and our families, but also a lot of information can be negative and overwhelming and causing further anxiety and fear and negativity. That's why I believe it's important for us to create inspiring content that we also focus on the positive things happening in our community. And today's episode is about a very important teaching that we all need to learn, which is about an attitude of gratitude. In my life, I have been through quite a lot of challenges so far, changing countries, learning new languages and many other, and I found that gratitude is an amazing tool to change your mindset from maybe a more negative and deficit mindset to a more positive and appreciative one. So today I have an amazing guest, Kate Munro, with a lot of experience in the youth sector, and we're going to talk about gratitude. Welcome to today's podcast, An Attitude of Gratitude, with Dimitrios Papalexis, your host, and our guest for today, Kate Munro. So Kate Munro has a lot of experience in the youth sector, many years of experience, and she's also a community development practitioner, a member of ABCD community. So I will welcome now Kate, and we will get started with this podcast about gratitude. Hello Kate, how are you?
Hi Dimitrios, I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for joining us today.
No problem, I'm excited.
Yeah, before we talk about this important topic of gratitude, I would like to ask you to talk to us a bit about yourself and the work that you do so people get to know you.
Yeah, sure. So I've been working in the youth sector for all my career, so coming up on a bit over 28 years now. I've done lots of different kinds of jobs in that time. I've done counselling work and case management work and running programs, but I guess the area I'm most passionate around is around youth development and encouraging organisations and young people to find ways to be able to participate more meaningfully in their communities and to be able to influence decision makers and the decisions that those people make for them.
That sounds amazing. So what made you have this focus and this preference in your work? What made you so passionate about participation for young people? If you could summarize, I guess, 28 years of experience.
So what makes me passionate about it? Look, I think that, young people are experts in their own lives, just as, in asset-based community development, we believe that community knows what is best for itself and has its own best solutions. I believe the same is true for young people, and so young people are a particular group in our community who often have a lot of decisions made for them on their behalf by decision makers in all kinds of different settings. My passion, I guess, is trying to get those decision makers to listen more to what young people actually say.
Okay, the other question I would like to ask Kate is, what are some of the milestones in your life that you are grateful for?
What am I grateful for? I mean, many many things. I think, look, much of my life has been like just right place, right time. So many things that I'm probably very grateful for, job opportunities, people who've come into my life, things like that. They were unexpected. They weren't planned in that sense. So I think that I used to have a boss who had a saying that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So I think that the important thing is that if you're, if you have an open mind, if you have a curious mind, if you have some insight into the things that make you happy, the things that are satisfying, that are meaningful for you, then you will end up in the right place at the right time, and you'll be ready to take those opportunities when they present themselves.
That sounds an amazing advice. Yeah. And any more advice for everyone, and maybe especially for young people, on how can they be prepared to make the most of the opportunity when an opportunity appears?
Yeah, I think I guess it's just doing, some of it's doing that sort of personal reflective work, which is, we all have days where we want to do that and all have days where we don't want to do that. But just, I think it's just getting to know yourself. Like like I said, what are the things that bring you joy in your life? What are the things that make you feel like you have meaning and purpose in your life? What are the things that you don't enjoy? Where are your strengths? Where are, the things that you'd like to develop? It's just the more you know yourself, the more you understand yourself, the more informed choices and decisions you can make.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I will play the devil's advocate a bit here, Kate. I guess from my experience working with young people, many times they do know themselves and what they want to do, and there is still quite a lot of pressure from society and sometimes from family in terms of even choices about profession, and what, like, there is a conflict between what their passion and what their family wants them to do, or what the society expects them to do. So would you have any advice for young people who are in these dilemmas?
Yeah, I think that look, it's hard, isn't it? There's a lot of conversations about following your passion, but your passion
Yeah.
may not lead you. You can chase a passion that is, it can take a long time to realize or to find the right opportunity, and you can miss other things on the way. I think that's what I mean a bit about right time, right place. So you can have your passion and you know what it is, and maybe that's your dream, but it doesn't mean that you don't, listen to other people who maybe know you, watch for other things that come up that are opportunities that maybe you hadn't thought about. Maybe that's something just to do in the here and now, and maybe that will add to your being able to get to your passion, or maybe that will take you in a different direction. But I think it's important to be really open-minded. I think if you are very tunnel visioned about something, sometimes that can work out, absolutely, but sometimes
Yeah.
it doesn't work out, or sometimes it can take a long time and you miss the learning that can happen along the way instead. So yeah, I think it's just about being open and present in the moment, the here and now. What's happening here and now? What are the opportunities that are here for me here and now? What's
Mhm.
the what feels right for me? And yeah, often there's pressure from parents and there's pressure from other people. Those people, a lot of time they know young people well as well. So it's worth listening at the very least. Maybe you then choose not to do what they
Mm.
say, but they're often coming from a very good place. So you don't want to disregard what they say either.
Yeah, it seems that from what you are saying, that sometimes a good balance is needed between, like, a young person's passions and dreams and aspirations, and a bit of reality check of what will be the best course of action in
Yeah.
the present moment.
A passion
Yeah,
doesn't
so
always pay the bills, does it? So,
true.
we've all
Sometimes it does,
got
sometimes
passions.
not.
As adults, we've all got passions as well. So it's no
Of course.
different. And I think for young people, it's knowing that. That's just a life lesson. Like,
Yeah,
can I chase my passion now, or have I got some other obligations I have to meet now? And my passion is, I haven't forgotten it. It's there, but maybe I have to temper the enthusiasm that I'm chasing it with while I meet the other obligations I have to have. And then sometimes those other obligations bring other opportunities.
sure. Yeah, and most importantly, it's not a black and white thinking, right?
Yeah.
Either you follow your dreams or not. It's actually a process, a journey, according to what you're describing. Even for us as adults, many times, finding the right career path or the right opportunity, the right mix. It's a process. So especially imagine for young people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, for many of us, it was just right place, right time. And there were plenty of times when we weren't in the right place and we didn't, we were doing things that we definitely weren't passionate about, but we learned things along the way, and, they add to the people that we are now.
And I think it was you that you mentioned to me in the past that we shouldn't be taking success personally and we shouldn't be taking failure personally, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think, it's part of that self-reflection. What role did I play in this thing that happened, in the success or the thing that went wrong? Is there something I can learn from that and do differently? Fantastic. But sometimes things just succeed or fail, regardless of what we did. There was some other circumstance, some other variable that we didn't control. We were just, right place, right time, wrong place, wrong time. It can go either way. So I think we have to be careful, because sometimes we get caught up in the emotion of success, and we start to think that we did this amazing thing, when in fact maybe it just happened and it was going to happen anyway. And then the same when something doesn't work, we beat ourselves up and beat ourselves up, but maybe that was always going to happen. So you kind of sit in the middle. Don't don't get too carried away with the success, and then you don't have to take too much of the failure on either. You just have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah, and I guess it also goes into moving a bit from an individualistic view of life to a more collective life. Like even for myself, like as you know, I was nominated and awarded as the Youth Worker of the Year last year. And I feel this is the result of an amazing teamwork, a teamwork with young people, a teamwork with colleagues, with many organizations, So I told them, like when I, in my speech, that I feel like this is the result of a teamwork. And I feel like it goes back to that idea that, as a whole, the African proverb that, you can go alone, you can go fast, but you can go further with others.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes we let our egos get in the way. In an individualistic society, there's this idea that, I can do anything I want and I just have to push through, regardless. I have to chase that dream. But sometimes it's not about my ego and not about my dream. Sometimes my role is to support somebody else in finding their dream, or is to support other people in finding something that's meaningful for them. So I think ego gets in the way a lot for all of us.
Yeah. And I guess in our work with asset-based community development, we talk many times about hosting others, holding space for communities, for young people. And we also talk about leading by stepping back. So I guess these learnings apply to that. But look, Kate, I could talk to you for hours about young people and youth work, but I would like to ask you now a bit about gratitude, which is our topic.
Yeah.
And I think everything we're discussing, of course, is related. But I would really like to ask you about that, because I saw recently that you are posting some daily posts of gratitude on Facebook, and we had some conversations with some groups, and I guess I'm really curious about that. So what do you, first of all, before you even talk about the post, what do you think is the importance of gratitude, especially during these challenging times we're going through with the COVID-19?
Yeah, so I think, and I'm by no means a gratitude expert, but I know that there is, there's a lot of studies that have been done around the practice of gratitude and the positive impact that it has on people's mental well-being. And, there's kind of that world. And for me, it's really just a personal thing. And again, it's a little bit of divorcing my ego about, am I doing this thing that's, this great offering for other people, or am I just doing something that is a very personal thing for me? And if there's some learning for other people from that, that's great. That's fantastic. I hope that I can share some of that learning. But for me, it's a personal, it keeps me grounded. So it's a personal thing for me, just to practice being, to practice being grateful for things, instead of, I think sometimes as humans we can default to a negative headspace. Things are wrong, things aren't good, everything is terrible, everything is difficult. And there are times when it very much is like that. So I'm very mindful not to tell people who are really struggling with really tough times that, just to be grateful for something and that'll make it all better. Absolutely not. Again, it's a personal thing for me. It works for me. But people have to find what works for them as well.
I like how you say about the personal thing for you. You're doing it for you, but also other people might benefit. I would like to ask you a bit more personal question. Since you started these daily posts, did you notice any changes in yourself, in terms of your, your attitude, or did you notice any responses to that? Just being curious about this process,
Yeah.
because I believe everything we do has a response and a reaction
Yes.
at the same time.
Well, look, for me, I mean, the reason I started, it was my way of, in this sort of COVID world, there was a lot of, people were posting lots of, it was when the infection stuff was pretty, was beginning, and there were lots of people posting, information about what we should do, what people weren't doing, what people should be doing, anger around what our leaders were doing. And it was very easy to buy into that. And I felt that for me, that put me in a position of powerlessness and inability to kind of control my emotions. So I wanted to do something that just grounded me, and that, I mean, it probably, arguing about ego, it probably didn't need to be public, but I felt like if I was going to inhabit that social media space, I wanted to do something to contribute something that for me felt that I was taking some control back, particularly around my emotions. So I made a decision to post each day, something that I was grateful for. And part of it was for me, and part of it was to share with, there were friends of mine, there are colleagues, there are young
Mhm.
people I'd work with who I was watching on social media who, I could see them. They were struggling. They were, the same things. The same emotions were coming up for them. They were getting caught in these negative spaces. Everyone was feeling a bit powerless. So I thought if some of that is useful to them, then that's wonderful. That's something I can share. If I can ground myself, well, then I can share that groundedness.
Sure. And did you get any responses, on social media or by
Yeah,
friends?
so it's interesting, and this is where the ego comes in, I think, because it's always lovely when someone says, "Oh, I really like your post." Yeah, and then you start to look and go, "Oh, how many people like my post today? What comments did people make?" And I really had
Sure.
to pull myself back from that and remind myself that that's, I'm not. It's
That's
not
not what
about me
it's about.
validating what a great person I am by posting something. It really, the genuine intention behind it was, I want to stay in a positive headspace around what's happening. I don't want to slip into a
Hmm.
criticizing, angry headspace. And if I can, in through doing that, offer someone that's helpful, something that's helpful, that's great. But it doesn't need to. I don't need to then rely on what I see come back. But it's interesting. Different days, people will post something, and I think, we all know it ourselves. Sometimes every now and again we're on social media, and we see something that just, right time, right place. It's the thing.
Yes, and it makes a
Yeah, and so
difference.
that's what I hope. But I don't need to. I very intentionally try not to need to even know that or to think about that, because the minute you start to think about that, it changes your intention, because your intention is, I need to do
Sure.
something to help someone, and it's put my ego back into that space again. So it's trying to step back from that and think, I'm doing something to help myself, and if that helps someone, then that's lovely. But I don't ever need to know whether that happens.
True, true. And I also mentioned at the beginning in my introduction that during COVID-19 there is lots of posts on media and lots of news, and a lot of this is good, like for us to know for our safety. But also, I was reading into some studies. I was doing a presentation for parents in terms of young people mental health, and there is lots of also negative results from that media news many times in terms of
Mm.
negative posts coming out, like things that scare people. And I think especially for young people, it can be quite detrimental to their health, and mental health can increase anxiety. I was talking to a person from Headspace the other day. He was saying me that some young people are even more depressed because they can't go out and see their friends, and all they see is negative things on media. So I feel like, as you say, you didn't do it for that. But it does make a difference when people post also positive things on social media, right? When they post things that can help others to change their mindset, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, I think, like you say, there's so much information, and some of it's very important, but
Hmm.
we can't control that sort of onslaught often of information, but what we control is how we respond to things. So for me, it was just a very small intentional step of thinking, well, what happens in my day that I see that makes me feel grateful, in all of this world. So again, it's a very intentional looking at not so much material goods or wealth or privilege or things, like those kind of things that only some people have that they feel grateful
Sure.
for.
Like, look at my
My
Ferrari
Ferrari,
kind
or
of thing,
look at
right?
my amazing swimming pool, and here's me, not that. But I think that it's very easy, and I guess this is my learning from it. It's very easy to forget. Each day there are many things that just they literally just pass through my head in a fleeting thought, where I think, oh, how funny is that? How nice
Sure.
is that? Isn't that a beautiful thing that I just saw? Isn't that a lovely moment? Oh, I forgot what that, here's that thing that makes me happy. So
And I noticed that there are a lot of posts about nature that come out from your posts and other people too, appreciation more of nature. Do you feel like nature is important, appreciating nature, spending time there, especially during those times,
yeah,
Kate?
look, for me, absolutely, and I am very lucky.
Hmm.
This is where yes, I completely understand that I am privileged enough to be able to live close to some beautiful natural environments, and that's not the case for everyone. And again, I'm very mindful about that. Do you know what? You don't need to be in nature. You can look at a picture of it and appreciate its beauty, and that's fine. Like, it's, you do what you can with what you have. But yeah, I do think that for a lot of people, this experience is, being locked in our houses, particularly people in urban contexts, being locked in our houses. Even if we
Hmm.
didn't spend a lot of time in nature, we're now kind of craving it, because we're,
Sure.
that world is thriving, and it's growing, and it's, healing. And so for us to look at it and think, oh, I forgot how beautiful those things are. And again, I think it's the timelessness of, it's funny, a sunrise.
Fascinating.
So, a lot of my posts have been, or several of my posts have been around sunrises down beside the beach. But it's funny, I can be down there, and there'll be 100 odd people down there, despite social distancing, all taking a photo of the sunrise. So I think there's something about that's, every day the sun rises, every day the sun sets, every day, the trees are growing.
Start noticing those small
Yeah,
things
it's like
and of
something
nature.
bigger,
Not so
than
small.
yourself. You're
Yeah.
outside of yourself.
Bigger than our.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we didn't have the time to notice before because we were in a different rhythm,
Yeah.
like working. Something else I want to ask you is because I know, of course, I'm aware, like myself as well, that there are a lot of people who are struggling, with COVID-19 in terms of isolation, in terms of losing income, in terms of, health for the family members and friends. However, the more I talk also with friends and colleagues, I see also that a lot of people are having a positive experience. And I'll just talk very quickly about myself, like some things that happened with me after the initial shock, and of course I also lost income, and my routine got changed. But I found myself having more time. I found myself enjoying more my yard and being grateful for having a yard.
Yeah.
Even though I'm aware not everyone has, but people have different things that they can enjoy. And I found myself doing more art, for example, doing more poetry, doing these podcasts, doing more dancing, exercising every day, because it's the only legal thing to do outside and get a bit of fresh air. So I also found myself like meditating more and being very grateful for all the good things I have in my life. So I guess I wanted to ask you, do you notice any other positive things that you can be grateful for in your life at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think I think a lot of them I keep posting about. I get a little bit of stress each day when I think, oh my goodness, I've got to find something else to be grateful about that I can post. So it forces me to think a lot more about things. But there are many different sort of, the way that we're all living life differently is, yes, those connections, those different, like you're forced into a place where you have to rely on different solutions to things that you may have relied on in the past. And there's nothing wrong with what you did in the past, but it forces you to do things differently. It's like, I don't know, it's like going on a camping trip and, taking yourself away from all of the technology and finding a different way to cook and a different way to entertain yourself. And, it's a similar kind of process. We've been removed from some of the things, but not all of the things, but some of the things that sustain us. So how do we continue to find meaning, and how do we continue to do those things, those very fundamental
Mhm.
things? How do we connect? How do we make ourselves happy? How do we find meaning? Like those are sort of tasks of humanity, aren't they? So
Yeah, and we are creative
yeah,
beings, aren't we?
absolutely.
I think we are very creative in finding ways, to move forward and make the most. we can do from the
Yeah,
experience, I
definitely. I mean,
guess.
I think humans are hardwired for resilience, like we really are. Like, so
Mm.
it's tapping back into that at its core, I guess. And look, people do that all the time in many difficult situations. People facing ill health, people facing, all sorts of, complicated situations. But this one, it's like everyone's facing it en masse. So it's kind of brought into the light that sort of that hardwired for resilience that a lot of people know and live. That's their everyday reality. So I'm very mindful that there are many people who did it very, very tough before this happened. So for them, this is just another thing. It's another challenge for them, while the rest of us
Another
are
crisis to overcome.
carrying on like it's the most terrible thing that has ever happened to us. There are people who are
Yeah,
like, this
of
is
course.
nothing compared to what I've been through.
Yeah, true. The other thing I want to ask you is we talk in ABCD, asset-based community development, about the glass half full, which is a great analogy, I reckon, for focusing on the strengths, the gifts of the community, the good things that are happening already there, the assets. So I guess, do you believe that gratefulness and a practice of gratitude can help us to develop this appreciative mindset that we have in ABCD? And do you think that it's an opportunity now to cultivate gratitude and positive emotions as a way of shifting the focus from negativity, anxiety, fear, which are natural responses to shock, I guess, and the first reactions people may have? What are your thoughts around that, Kate?
Yeah, look, absolutely. It's in my mind, it's absolutely tied to the glass half full idea, and the, looking for what are the strengths and the assets within a community. Because when we look at the things that we're grateful for, those are the things that we rely on. Those are the things that, those are the things that bring us strength. So if you're already looking for things that are, I guess, within your own control, and that's one of the kind of fundamentals of asset-based community development as well, is looking at what can I do for myself, what can my community do for itself, rather than waiting for someone or something external to come and provide a solution. So gratitude is in my mind is very much around, well, if I need to manage my mood, I need to manage my responses. If looking at areas of gratitude is one of the things that will do that will improve my mental well-being, then that's me finding solutions. That's me, looking for the assets that exist in my life that are going to value add to it.
Exactly. And I will mention very quickly an interaction I had with my neighbor who told me that he was working also from home, but he didn't have a chair. And then I happened to have a chair on my shed that was sitting there. And I said, do you want it? Because I'm not using it. And then I gave it to him. And I think this is a perfect example of asset-based community development, like from one quick
Yeah,
interaction, and someone expressing something that they're not happy about,
absolutely.
and then a chair sitting there on the shed, like, and eventually the chair found
Yeah.
fulfill its purpose because it's a someone to sit on, and it's a nice chair, and I couldn't use it because it didn't fit on my room where my desk is.
That's wonderful.
So I think things like that is what makes my
Yeah.
day, and I feel like we don't need the
No.
big things. Like, we talk about celebrating the small wins
Yes,
in ABCD,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
I have a last tricky
Yes.
question for you, Kate, because I know you're a
Thank you.
busy woman. So, but I have a nice. So, what can you be grateful about the future when it comes to young people? Meaning, what are some of your wishes for the future? And that might be about young people, because I know you're very passionate, of course, but it might be about anything. So I'm just going to open it up. What can you be grateful about the future at the moment? What
Oh,
are
what am I
some of the
grateful
things that?
for? I look, I mean, in terms of, I am very fortunate to have many, many conversations with many different kinds of young people, and I'm incredibly grateful that they are a very generous, very compassionate generation. I'm grateful for that, because I'm going to be old and they're going to
Mhm.
need to care for me. But in all of the consultations that I've done, recently, and as you know, the work I do at the moment is a lot of work around doing consultations with children and young people across New South Wales. And they're
Sure.
always talking about their, no matter what question we ask, when we ask about what's working well in communities for them or what's not working well, every time without fail, the groups that we speak to speak beyond just themselves. So they speak about what's working for their families, what's working for the community they live in, what's working for other people. There's always comments about of concern for people who are doing it tough and what kind of support they need. So I feel very confident that we have, I don't know, maybe that's the same for every generation of young people. Maybe all people are like that when they're young, but isn't that lovely? That's a lovely thing. But I certainly feel very, I feel heartened that the generation that's coming after me is a caring and compassionate one. And or maybe, I don't know, maybe that's, I'm not a sociologist, but maybe that's, maybe they've had to grow up in kind of different circumstances that have brought that, they have a bigger awareness of what's going on around them, more so perhaps than previous generations, just because they're visually, you can hook into it in so many different ways, on television, on social media, so they have a much more kind of global perspective. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know why it is. I don't know whether it, like I said, maybe it's just common to being young, but they are definitely, I feel very hopeful about that.
It definitely brings a lot of hope, right? And I have the same experience working, with young people. They don't stop amazing me, with their generosity, compassion, visionary thinking. And I think this is important to share because it changes a bit the narrative about the deficit language around young people, right? Of course, there are young people who are vulnerable, they suffer with mental health issues, and they need support, homeless young people, of course. But I think we should never stop looking also at their strengths, their good heart, their generosity, and keep building on that. So I think it's important also to have those type of conversations that reframe our language and thinking about young people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right,
and
Kate?
look, I've, as part of the kind of different groups I've spoken to, I've spoken to young people who are some of the most, doing it the toughest, and those groups by far are always the most compassionate. Their number one statement is always, I want things to be different so that someone else doesn't have to have what happened to me happen to them. I want things to be different for other young people, in my peer group, if it's a societal issue, but there's always this concern about not wanting someone else to experience what they've experienced.
Yes, thinking beyond themselves, as we were saying
absolutely.
at the beginning. Well, I'm very grateful for this podcast, Kate. I think it's going to bring a lot of value for people who decide to listen, spend their time listening.
Thank you for talking to me.
I want to thank you so much, and I will talk to you soon in the future.
Thank you very much.
For joining us, Kate. Thank you. Bye. Have a great day. Bye. This was another episode. This was another episode with Kate Munro for the podcast series ABCD on the Go, bringing you inspiring stories from the community and spreading positivity. Stay tuned because we're going to have more podcasts coming up and more content. And if you would like to know more about this podcast series, or if you would like to participate on an episode, please feel free to contact us. This is Dimitrios Papalexis, and I was your host for today's podcast. Have a great day, and remember to stay positive and grateful for what you have. Bye.